Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the latest and greatest updates to Cemu, Yuzu and RPCS3 respectively. Now, I know that I covered Yuzu in a video only 2 days ago. If you didn't check out that video, you'll find a link for it down in this one's description. In that one, I took a look at most of the major changes that were added in the last 2 weeks. However, in the last 24 hours alone, we've been given a series of updates that fix major outstanding issues in many games. For example, in The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and many more. As I said, we've a lot to cover in this video, looking at 3 separate emulators updates, so let's get things started by taking a look at Cemu and their latest release version 1.19.2. This update is released right now and is free to everyone in the public. Let's get started by taking a look at some general changes in this new version. First up, they added a new region column to the games list. This is going to tell you if your game is from the EU, US or JPN regions. They have also added several new features to their title manager. They added a button to install your games to your system's NAND or your main MLC folder. Save games can now be deleted from individual accounts. You can see at the very bottom of the screen, you can select which account you are using. And save games can now be transferred from one account to the other, giving you a very easy way to backup saves or just simply transfer them from one user to the next. As I said, since base games can now be installed into your MLC folder in the same way that updates and DLC can be installed, you can then delete your previous installed game from your games list, though I would highly recommend not doing this, since in my opinion at least, it's always a good idea to keep a second copy of any of your dumped or backed up games. You may have noticed it already, but this title manager also received a slight UI and font overhaul. This was done to make it just a little bit clearer and a bit more user-friendly. On the topic of user-friendliness, this title manager has also been made much more robust. It will no longer crash, freeze, or become unresponsive when carrying out large tasks like deleting large files of DLCs, updates, or any installed MLC titles. Finally, for these general changes, they fixed a bug in the friend service implementation that could lead to the connection being dropped on large packets. This should hopefully solve any connectivity problems with the friends list application. Before we take a look at some GPU optimizations, we have one audio change. By improving the robustness in the emulated audio driver, they have fixed a rare audio corruption that could happen in several games. One example we were given is Paper Mario Color Splash. Further to these changes, we've also received some updates to OpenGL, Vulkan, and GX2 in general. Let's take a quick look at those now. First of all, they resolved a problem where GX2 Draw Done would not wait for texture readbacks under some rare circumstances. With this fix, it allows the Pictobox mechanic in Wind Waker HD to now correctly work, and it also seems to at least somewhat fix the camera rune in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild when full sync at GX2 Draw Done is disabled. In order to fix the Pictobox in the Wind Waker HD, you are required to enable extended texture readback in your game's game profile. They also added a safeguard that prevents infinite loops in shaders. This improves stability in games like New Super Mario Bros. And New Super Luigi U. The final change in 1.19.2 gives us a fix to Vulkan, meaning that shaders that fail compile will no longer make the emulator crash. Some pretty cool stuff, I think we can all agree, especially some really nice quality of life stuff with the title manager. For now though, let's move away from Cemu onto Yuzu and take a look at all of the changes that they have just added in the last few days. First up, we have seen a sick fix for The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. First of all, take a quick listen to this. This is how The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening has sounded pretty much forever on Yuzu. It's been missing its footstep sounds, sword swinging sounds, the noises that come from your bow wow, the noises that come from using your shield. Pretty much every sound was missing from the game, apart from a few basic ones like Link doing grunting noises or the background music. Thanks to a new implementation, part of Yuzu's brand new audio rewrite, here's what it sounds like now. As you can hear, they have now fixed all of the missing audio in The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. The only remaining issue with this game is now the fact that some of the audio is a little bit quieter than it should be. Now, on top of fixing all of these audio issues, every single softlock and crash that this game would previously encounter has now also been fixed, meaning that this game is now fully playable and perfectly rendered on the Vulkan API. Speaking of softlock and audio issues, Animal Crossing New Horizons has received another update that completely fixed every single one of its softlocks, and on top of this, as with The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, much of the audio that previously did not work or play at all in this game will now be correctly rendered. Again, staying on the topic of awesome new updates, all of the rendering and T-posing issues have now been fixed in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on updates after 3.1.0. This of course means that you can use the game's latest update 7.0.0 as well as all of its latest DLC character unlocks like Joker, Byleth, Banjo and Kazooie or the Hero. This latest update, paired with all its DLC, does seem to have a few issues with crashing. These issues have been reported to the developers and are being looked into as we speak, with the most prominent problem seemingly being a softlock that happens when using Heroes Final Smash in 4-player game modes or larger. Hopefully we'll see these crashing issues fixed sooner rather than later. Regardless, it's pretty awesome to see these changes coming in such a short period of time. Speaking of awesome changes, let's once again swap away from Yuzu over to RPCS3 and take a look at all of the latest and greatest changes there. Most of this information comes from a very nice write-up that the RPCS3 devs gave to us over on their Patreon, with most of these changes being added to the master version of RPCS3 in the last 3 to 4 weeks. First up, we have a new implementation for the Vulkan API stencil buffer clear operations with write masking. This feature was apparently easily supported within OpenGL, but for Vulkan it required custom shader passes to simulate the exact same effect. With this new implementation, shadow rendering is now fixed in Sly 3. Another new set of improvements brought the implementation of stippled or stippled rendering, and while I'm not sure how it's exactly pronounced, I know that it fixes issues in older games like Metal Gear Solid 2 HD Edition. With this implementation, transparency on objects like water is now fixed. Moving swiftly on, and thanks to improved surface cache resource management, many games that would commonly run out of VRAM such as Gran Turismo 5 or Heavenly Sword have now been fixed. An issue with Gran Turismo 5 when anti-aliasing was enabled has also now been solved, fixing one of the longest running crashes on this game. Unfortunately, Gran Turismo games in general are still pretty unstable, with crashes and softlocks due to RSX desync still being fairly common. Hopefully, these issues can be solved in the very near future. In past weeks, we also saw improvements to the MotorStorm games, the first of which fixed a bug and regression causing this and God of War 3 to stop rendering, and the second which introduced an optimization to the shader decompiler, fixing issues in the MotorStorm titles such as flickering terrain and broken motion blur. On top of these changes, we also got a major RSX optimization in relation to SRC precision modifiers. A few examples of these optimizations can be seen right here in Red Dead Redemption, where the transparency and opacity of the clouds has now been completely fixed. On top of this, lighting sources which were previously broken have also now been fixed in the emulator. This PR also fixed a multitude of graphical issues in literally dozens of games. Another great example is the overly dark shadows in Metal Gear Solid 4. Thanks to this new fix and optimization, broken shadows and shading on character models is now completely fixed. This PR changed so many games that if I tried to list all of them, I'd be here for probably another 25 minutes. So if you want to check out any and all of the games improved by it, you'll find a link to this pull request down in the description of this video. Yet another RSX optimization, this time one that implemented signed normalized texture formats, gave us a lot of shading and lighting fixes across many titles. This PR, as with the previous RSX optimization, gave us so many changes to so many games, it would be impossible to feature them all in one singular video. Just a few of them include shading and lighting fixes in Infamous, lighting, shading and bloom fixes for Resistance 2, shading and lighting fixes for Ratchet & Clank A Crack in Time and Tools of Destruction, on top of lighting engine fixes to Just Cause 2. As with the previous RSX optimization, this one has fixed so many games that I'd be here for an eternity to list them all. If you want to check out this PR, including all the games it has improved, you'll find a link to it down in the description also. The final two changes we have are an improved OpenGL shader decompiler. This change makes RPCS3 compatible with Messa's GL thread optimization, allowing much greater performance when using OpenGL. Finally, they fixed a bug in the surface configuration which broke visuals in Metal Gear Solid 3 when anti-aliasing was enabled. Thanks to this fix, transparency on surfaces such as glass will now be correctly rendered. So there we have it guys, all of the latest, greatest and most up-to-date changes to some of your favorite emulators. As always, if there are any additional games you would like me to take a look at, please don't be afraid to ask me down below in a comment. And as usual, for any of my Patreon supporters, if there are any games you would like me to specifically highlight or again take a quick look at in a video like this, don't be afraid to let me know either over on Patreon or in the supporters room over on my Discord server. Speaking of Patreons, if you want to support any or all of the emulators I've just shown off in this video, you will find links to their respective support or Patreon pages down in this video's description. For now at least, that's going to be it for this video. Once again guys, thank you all very much for watching, I greatly appreciate it. As always, remember to like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see all future videos from me.